ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Stardust Share Gaming, and we are back with another Newsday overview. I know this is a couple of days late, but I really wanted to get this out there to talk a little bit about the latest WARNO, I guess, patch and kind of what their plans are for the future and discuss that a little bit. I know I don't do these super often, but this is one that I thought was kind of notable and I thought would be worth kind of walking through bit by bit. So, first of all, Milestone Berthier is out. That's absolutely awesome. They have the Kitzigan Ruse and a backhand blow with it, which videos of that I just failed Kitzigan Ruse, so you're welcome to watch that on my attempt video. I will try again on that at some point. But you know, they've really been focusing on the single player content recently. Now, I love the Army General of Steel Division 2. Very excited for the Army General here. That being said, I don't really care too much for the operations personally. I like, you know, they're fun to try, but they don't offer too much in terms of unique gameplay. They talk about how they're fully voiced and scripted, but you know, it's kind of just a layover at the start. I don't find it terribly engaging. I mean, Eugen's a small studio, you know, someone expect a fully immersive experience, but personally, I would like to see more from the operations, although the Kitsingen Ruse it was challenging and interesting to play. And as always, they're balancing and updating. All that being said, that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people really play this game for the single player first and foremost, and it's good to see Eugen focusing on operations and giving those people more content because they've been starved for content. I'd really like to know what percentage of Warno players are single player almost exclusively and which amount play multiplayer, you know, because I could say for myself what I think it is, but I have my own bias because I play multiplayer. You don't see the huge amounts of people who are on a single player game, right? Presumably. So I would wonder, I know Eugen must have the numbers. I'd love to see. Is it 60%? Play single player? Is it 30%? You know, but either way, there's obviously a single player community, and I'm happy that they're getting fed with these new operations. So nothing wrong with that. And we have two new operations up. First of all, the Götterdämmerung operation. I'm very actually excited about this one. Basically, the scenario is that one of the Warsaw Pact attacks has failed, and this 11th Motorschützen Division has to hold the southern flank, and you're probably going to have those like MT-100 Rapiros and stuff like that, and try to stop like elite NATO forces in the Valley of Stugarok. So, you know, holding the flank. So this should be a fun operation. I'm looking forward to trying it. Who knows where they get this overlay? It's really cool. They won't share it with us. It's just an engine tool. You know, we obviously don't get cool overlays like that. And then the second operation is going to have the French 7th Division in the Dieburg salient operation. And basically, a lot of the lore seems to be focusing around the battling for Frankfurt. And that makes sense because that's where the U.S. 7th Corps is in real life, where it's positioned, which is one of the best equipped armored forces, and that's that area. You hear Fulda Gap in reference to the Cold War. The Fulda Gap is what Frankfurt's right in the middle of that. So looks like they in the in-game lore, the French 7th Division was sent to reinforce Frankfurt. So that's pretty interesting. Now, reworked urban combat. This is pretty cool. And right away, you guys are seeing this awesome statue, which I believe is a tribute to the Red Army when they liberated, quote unquote, liberated um, Berlin. So that's definitely interesting. I really like the idea of having a unique set piece. I don't think this means they're dropping a Berlin map specifically. I just don't see that necessarily happening. Anyone who's played World in Conflict, you know that they have an absolutely awesome Berlin map where you start in the campaign and you play and you blow up the border wall and like command Soviet troops pushing right into Berlin. It's absolutely awesome. Unfortunately, I don't see Eugen really doing that, but it's cool to see unique tile pieces like that. Nevertheless, I hope to see more things like that in the future. And down here, you see something very cool. They're talking about, you know, reworked urban combat, clear view zones for units and cities. Urban zones will be significantly overhauled. So I'm very interested in that. What I hear when I hear that is I can just park tanks out in these wide fields, you know, and just shoot up the city blocks for free. Like, Or if I'm playing defensively, I can just put a bunch of recoilless rifles and M47 Dragon teams in the buildings and just wipe out tanks and try to support. So I'm really excited. Either side I think will be fun to play, defensively or offensively. So I'm looking forward to the overhaul. Nothing wrong with the cities now whatsoever. But that being said, I am still looking forward to what it's going to bring. And Twin Cities brought those like much bigger apartment buildings, and so I'm looking for city-sized buildings. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of those in the new maps. In the new maps, they shared this teaser image, which is very clearly showing an airport. You've got looks like two air traffic control towers, some hangars over here, stripped for vehicles, or maybe a helicopter hangars, and some barracks for pilots and ground crew and stuff like that. So it would be absolutely awesome to fight over a giant airfield. Like that really happened in the Gulf War. The French overran a Iraqi airfield in their Hook when they were moving through the desert, and stormed an airfield with tanks across the tarmac, which is so cool. So really looking forward to seeing an airfield map, or a map that includes a large airport as being part of the combat. People have been asking for this for a very, very long time. They've been saying, let's have some big set pieces, some massive bridges, like a big European style, like a bridge to Remagen type major bridge, or a big airfield, or a nuclear power plant, or train stations with many tracks running in all directions, as an objective. That would be awesome. I'd love to see more unique um, things added. And as you can see, it obviously says that you've got an airfield coming, which is very cool. Army General is being developed. They added an extra campaign on top of the four promised. That's absolutely awesome. I think we all love to see that. And they just mentioned that they were just testing it with a smaller map and maybe some different units, and they said this is so good, we're just going to turn it into an AG campaign. With all of its accompanying features, intros and briefings and voice acting. So I think that's great. I would rather fight big army generals than small ones. That being said, nothing wrong with getting a whole free campaign. And on top of that, the biggest news is the new multiplayer divisions. I think that this is going to be very exciting. They did mention that these units don't really have many new unit models, except those done for the campaign, but haven't been used in skirmish or multiplayer. So what that tells me is that for us multiplayer players, or just for us players, it's not new to Eugen team, but these new units are going to be new to us. Um, so that's going to be really cool. Basically, they're saying it's going to have new units, but they've already been modeled on using the campaigns, in the reserve areas. Uh, they will get some new variants and existing units, and some original equipment and slot availability allocation as well, to give these divisions a unique flavor. Even if these two new divisions had nothing new in them and just were rebalanced, I would have no problem with that at all. I think a lot of people don't quite understand, looking at the Warsaw Pact and NATO and war games in this field. People are very impatient for new equipment and new vehicles and new stuff, and whenever things drop without new vehicles or a bevy of new supplies, people get upset. People have been upset that the NATO divisions have had a lot more variety than the Warsaw Pact ones, and frankly, this just represents history. The Warsaw Pact was much more standardized. Frankly, I study in graduate school in precisely this area, actually, Cold War, 1980s Europe, and frankly, Eugen has already modeled almost everything major that the Warsaw Pact brings to the table. The Warsaw Pact is based around standardization because it was designed to fight all of the Warsaw Pact client states. Poland, Germany, all the others were designed to fight with the Red Army as supplements to Red Army forces. So because of that, they were equipped with the same equipment, the same tanks, the same vehicles. These weren't really independent nations. They were puppet states to the Warsaw Pact. They didn't really have their own native defense industry. That being said, they had some interesting units, and a small amount of indigenously supplied stuff, but mostly it's all Warsaw Pact stuff. It's all one and the same. It's just that these client states get older Warsaw Pact equipment, like the MT-12 100 Rapira, which I absolutely adore, or T-55s. The modern Red Army forces are going to be getting their best equipment. So Warsaw Pact, this might disappoint people, but all the major stuff has been modeled. There's not that much more variety. Now on the NATO side, somewhat of a different story. If you're going to bring in the future DLC Norway or Finland, who knows what side Finland would be on, because they put it on the Soviet side in Wargame Red Dragon, or on the, I guess, Red Force side in Wargame Red Dragon. Italy, These countries have their own indigenous defense industries. They will bring their own units to the table, and it will definitely be very, very exciting. They will add a lot of variety. So that will be cool. That being said, people do need to realize that, let's say they introduce Italy. Italy doesn't bring that much to the table. In this time period, in the 80s time period, they don't have their own completely indigenous separate tank model. They just don't. They use the M1113 APC, just like the Americans do, as an armored personnel carrier. They use NATO helicopter, or they use, I believe they use the Gazelle helicopters. So the point is that even when you bring in a new nation, even if it's unique, you're a lot of it is going to be what we've already seen. So don't expect too much from these new nations because historically, historical accuracy wise, they didn't bring that much new stuff to the table. There will be a bevy of newly named infantry squads, new leader units, new stuff like that for all countries, and But in terms of actual tanks and aircraft and vehicles, don't expect to see too much brought to the table. Although the NATO countries, when they're introduced, will bring more to the table than Warsaw Pact ones will. So just expect that in the future. So all that being said, from a history standpoint, I have no problem. I love seeing new multiplayer divisions. We weren't even promised these two, so I'm happy to see them come in. And even if they had almost all the same units, just different slot variety and allocation is interesting enough for me because you're going to use those divisions in new and interesting ways. Finally, balance patches. So they're going to continue with the balance, moving through the game, and they've always been very on top of it. Some people, especially in the Discord, are very upset about the rate that Eugen moves with this kind of stuff. The tank meta is somewhat infamous. Personally, it's never hindered my gameplay. I either play against it, I know how to defend against tanks. I know how to play as tanks. I can make it work for me either way. So I think some people are just a little bit over the top in about the meta because I just use whatever units I use, and I'm fine. So, anyways, I'm like, if I can do it, other people surely can as well. Obviously, this is a tragedy to see these really cool cars getting crushed by this really cool looking tank. Those look like nice cars. And then finally, they have a gentle reminder: incessant, non-stop demands are not going to be responded to well by the Eugen team. Remember that Eugen is in France. They just had all those strikes. They're a small team. They're doing the best they can, and they're creating what I think is the best war game, like best war game ever seen. So I can't wait to see what WARNO is going to bring to the table. I'm excited to see what these new divisions are bringing, and I'm really excited to see the new map. If they bring an airport and it's very well received, they might possibly do things like what I was mentioning with big railway bridges or nuclear power plants or stuff like that, more interesting and unique things. And that can only add more variety, especially to the Army General campaigns. I remember in Steel Division 2, when you use your ground forces and overrun the airfield, I thought they would be like some unique map, but nope, it's just grass. And it was like, they don't have an airfield? So this, for example, will allow them to make an airfield tile on Army General maps whenever they introduce airfields. So the point is that the more variety, I think, the better. This is a very specific stature, so this could be an outskirts of Berlin map or part of Berlin map. I wouldn't count on that in terms of dying if you're dying to see like the Berlin Wall and stuff like that. I would not count on that. But all that being said, I'm very, very excited for what this is going to bring to the table. And looking at the discussion, it's really nice to see for once a lot of positivity showing up in the comments. People are waiting for the airport map. People are happy that devs are communicating. Borkicker says he enjoys the game and enjoys everything you just made so far. I think this is a very nice, positive comment section with a minimum, relatively speaking, of just total complaining. So overall, I'm very, very excited for what Warner's bringing to the table. I can't wait to see what is coming up in the future, and I can't wait to get my hands on these new divisions and maps. So that's all for today. Please let me know if you enjoyed, if you thought I had something interesting to say, and leave your comments on what you're excited for, or what you think Eugen's doing right, or if it can improve in some area, what do you think should come next. So, anyways, something a little bit shorter newsroom update for you guys today. That's all for now. This is your host, Stardust Gaming, signing off.